Painful for all of us to be here. Come for such a me'ura. So many tchunas, so many midas, each one remarkable, are boilet when we just allow ourselves to think just for a few moments. For Rabbi Grossman of Dovid, of course, first and foremost, comes to everybody's mind. Torah. Riesige Haravanya, tremendous phenomenal hasmada, ideas ha-Torah, breitkeit ha-Torah, life of Torah durch and durch. I always think immediately, we think of Rabbi Grossman of Dovid, of his Rizus, his whole mahalach in mitzvahs, his life, the clouds, in such a high energy. His Rizus comes to mind also immediately is his simcha sachayim, toiv leiv, mishter tamid, ki'ilu hu be'etzel mishter tamid lashon Rashi. He's constantly in a state of happiness, happy and content with himself, happy with the world around him. Freilach, gewaltige chesed, that he was involved with. So many stories were said over by the Shiva, stories that many of us, myself, certainly did not know of, involvements that he was in different areas of chesed, with his busy schedule. And finally, what comes to mind initially is his tremendous koyach, his focus on being mechazik others, to be meitiv el hazulas, others, helping other people with their bein adam l'hamokayim, helping other people with their bein adam l'chaveiroi. These are tchunas and traits, which are things which are associated so deeply with the zikaron of Reb Dovid or Reb Grossman, Zechreinu Levracha. I met somebody who said that when he heard the Besura and he felt the pain of losing Rabbi Grossman, the entire community lost him, Klal Yisrael lost him, he was mekabel on himself. He said to himself that he has to go through once again the entire Shar Dalid in Nefesh HaChaim. He has to go through the whole Shar HaTorah of Reb Chaim Voloshener. And as he learned Nefesh HaChaim Shar Dalid, how almost kemat every word resonates so deeply, so strongly with Reb Dovid Grossman. Just go over just in the Rashi Prokim of the different Prokim. And just the words of what Reb Chaim Voloshener is describing is something which is in itself a hesped for Reb Dovid. He begins with the idea of Torah's chesed al Shoinoi. A whole parak on that. There's a parak on the idea that Torah is mekarav, a person HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the kiruv Hashem, a person is zayted to with Torah. And then the famous Kama Prokim on Torah L'Shma, the Shem HaTorah, without any other pniya, shum pniya cheres, just leman Torah's Hashem. Reb Chaim Voloshener again is Mayrich on Yiras Hashem Yitzarei. A person has to create himself to be a Yorei, to be machzik the Torah. Then he goes on to discuss the chiyus and the oir and the kiyum of this world and all the lamas come through the Torah Kedosha. Chaim Voloshener is Mayrich more on the gewaldige sasayin and simcha that's created by Kadosh Baruch and the Elamas Al Yonim with chidushay Torah. And how a person who dedicates himself properly to Torah is zeichet to entire hanhagel the mailim hateva, a shmiru mikael, hashkacha pratis, something the Kinder was saying over stories by the Shiva, of so out of the ordinary teva, zachen that he was zeichet to. Then Reb Chaim Voloshener goes on to akar p'tirosei mizeh ha'olam. What happens to a person who's Dovid b'Torah is an entirely different afterlife experience. Torah is megin la'olam. The mitzvahs are megin l'fisha, and Torah is megin la'olam. And eventually, Reb Chaim Voloshener ends off with the idea of an ein shiur, rak ha-Torah hazois. One goes through parak Shar Dalid, parak after parak, and it understands that every word there, kemat every word, is so relevant. to the nifter. Just one short, very brief idea. Maspidim were asked to speak, come in from far and from near. Shekayach, leave the stories and the Maisman Hanhagis, different points. Just one very, very brief idea. We come together not just as the Kail, but as the community. And as a community, we understand that there's an entire Kehillah. There's an entire Kehillah that we're zeicher to be part of. And there are many different parts and facets to that Kehillah. But as B'nai Torah, we realize that there's a key element. There's an engine. There's a life-giving force to the Kehillah. You have a car with many, many parts and many halakim which are important and crucial to the existence and to the mahalach of using that car. But there's always the engine. And what invigorated us, what invigorates a Yiddish shtat, a community, is a Torah Alein. Having somebody like Reb Dovid in our midst was not just one more facet of what Klal Yisrael represents. It's the very life-giving force of what not just he himself and his family need, but for all of the community and all of Klal Yisrael, something which he invested and contributed to our shtat, and well beyond our shtat, both in a practical sense with his shiurim, and in a ruchniya sense with his kaiches that is mashpia, and how much chizuk and kiyum, as Reb Chaim Grossman explains, came through him. Just leave off with a Shloshim, the Ramchal, Mesilas Yesharim, and Shara Prishus. Something we have to think about when we approach this, focusing on the P'tira. He asks Kashis that ideally a person should be parish from Olam Hazeh Mikol V'chol. And why is it that Chazal were not geyser, that nobody should have any shaykhis to Olam Hazeh more than need be? And he explains that it's a Gzeir she'ein roi v'tzibur yichayim lamoid boi. Ve'ein roi v'tzibur yichayim liyois chasidim, aval dai lahem she'yiyu tzadikim. The average person cannot necessarily be a chassid, but a tzaddik is all he can do. Ach hasridim asher ba'om. There are sridim. Grossman mentioned, hachafeitzim lizkois v'kirvasa yizborach. V'lizkois b'schusam l'chol shar ha'hamoin ha'nitla behem. All of us have a schus kiyum only through these sridim who go over and beyond the call of duty, over and beyond the basic chiyuv of a tzaddik. And we have a schus kiyum shar ha'am ha'nitla bom. Lahem ma'gia l'kayim mishnas chasidim. Asher le'yuchlu l'kayim ha'cherim. Ki bozeh bachar Hashem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu set up the world this way on purpose. Shekivon she'i efshar le'uma she'tiyah kula shove b'mayla achas. Ki yesh bo'am madregois ish lefi sichloi. The Ummah by definition has many different madregas. Hine lefachos yechidei skula yimotzu asher yechinu es atzmam hachana gemura. The yechidei skula, who they themselves are able to prepare themselves completely. Val yedei hamuchanim, and al yedei those people, yizku gam habilti muchanim, ela havasa yizbarach v'hashras shchinasai. We're only zeichet hashras shchinasai. And the Avos HaKadosh Baruch Hu, through those people, that Dovid Grossman served as a vehicle to be mashpia on us, Hashras Hashchina, Avas Hashem. We think the void that must be filled after the P'tira of such a person is tremendous, is phenomenal. But the need to fill that void is also tremendous and phenomenal. If we want to be zeicher to the Avas Hashem that we were zeicher to up until this point, the Ashkochas Hashem, that we were zeicher to up until this point, we have to think each one what we can do to be mashlim kifi unsere madrega, the gewaldige chalal that was left behind us. I was talking to somebody who was going through so many different practical zachen that we had in our city, b'schus Dovid Grossman, and what's going to be with this, what's going to be with that. And one of the things the person said, what's going to be, who's going to keep a Leil Seder? Leil Shvu is the second night, who's going to keep that going? was thinking to myself, who's going to keep the Leil Seder the night after that? And the night after that, and the 5th and 6th and 177th night, the Kinder, Binyamin and other Kinder was testifying how every night during the year, they could wake up at any time in the middle of the night and come down to the father's office or Dovid's office and see Haraving and learning. It's not only a question of the second night Shavuos, it's a question of every single night, who's being Mekayim the Shtad, who's being Mekayim Klal Yisrael. We have such a void to fill. We should all be zeicher to think of ways how we're able to, on some level, fill this void, and there should be a level of nechama, a gewaldige level of nechama to his Tayre Mishpacha, to his Rebbetzin, to his Kinder, and we should all be zeicher to the Gula Shlema b'Meher of Yamein. Shekayev to Harav Naftali Burstein for making the difficult trip, especially at this time. Just l'chvoidoi shal hanifter. Mishpacha felt that it would be chashuv for the tzibur to hear from the perspective, from the vantage point of a Talmud, talking about his Rebbe, at this time a Rav Naftali Burstein Shlit.
Rishus HaRabbanim, Rishus the Rosh Koilo, who everything I'm going to say tonight is just a longer pirush of what he said. Rishus everyone that came to be Nesaira tonight, for that alone is something that's a schus for the neshama of our Rebbe. I stand here like a shliach tzibur on Rosh Hashanah. I stand there as a shliach tzibur for the hundreds, thousands of talmidim, the ones that learned in his shir, and the ones that are talmidim from all the other ways he was marbitz Torah. Hineni ha'ani bimas nirash v'nivchad. Give over a little bit to his sayrus of what we as talmidim got from our Rebbe, and what's incumbent upon us to fear weiter, to continue, so that should be a schus and an ilui for his neshama. The Gemara in Shabbos says, Omelei Reb Yehuda l'Shmuel bar Shilas, Ochim libes pedoi the Hassam Kayimna. Warm up a hesped. Say a warm hesped, the Hassam Kayimna, because I stand there. In the Mefarshim, there's different pshat and what it means, the Hassam Kayimna. Either the Hassam Kayimna means that the neshama comes down to a place where they say haspedim about the nifter, and he's there to listen. He's there to see what type of hashpah he had on the tzibur. Others, taich, the Hassam Kayimna means, I'm already in that world. I can't be mashpia anymore. Warm up divrei yisayris, so that my hashpah should be able to continue the hashpah that I so badly wanted to be mashpia, even though it was the Rabbeinu Shalom's ratzon to take me away from this world, but do something that you could warm up the olam, to want to hold on tight to the hashpahs that I gave over to them. The hashpahs are not just in this city. I personally, shockingly, experienced in my own shirum a tremendous hashpah. After the Levaya, I spoke for about 2 weeks straight, come out every day to my shir about my Rebbe. Somehow, everything that I was learning in Mesilas Yesharim, my Rebbe was popping out of the pages. And on the day that they had us Spadim in Lakewood, after Shir, there was a crowd of Bachrim, and I said, I might have to leave Night Seder a couple of minutes early to go to the Spadim. And I hear 2 different Bachrim saying to the Bachrim next to them, I probably wasn't supposed to hear it. And each one said to their friend, Nu, say that now. Reb Dovid's famous line to the Bachrim when they weren't in the right place at the right time. Say that now. The message went over. The little bit that I was able to give over, the demus of my Rebbe in those 2 weeks, went deep into the neshamas of the Bachrim, that they were being teveya their Rebbe, Nu Seder now. How could you go to Reb David to pay them and miss 5-10 minutes a night Seder? I listened. I heard the koil and I stayed an extra couple of minutes a night Seder that night. There's a story of the Baal HaTanya. The Baal HaTanya was approached by one of his chassidim, a Pashto Yid, that wanted to know why he makes such a big asik out of Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah. So the Baal HaTanya answered him. He answered him with a mashal of powder, but we understand it better today's generation with concentrate. We have orange juice that's squeezed directly from an orange. That's pure orange juice, straight orange juice, the way it comes out. But then we have cans of concentrate orange juice. Concentrate orange juice is so packed with the flavoring of orange juice that you could take a pitcher of regular water, regular bland water, and you pour in just a couple of spoonfuls of the concentrate orange juice, and it spreads, and it gives off the flavor into the rest of the water, and then you can drink it, and you almost wouldn't know the difference between that and regular orange juice. The difference is because that concentrate is so packed thick with the flavoring of orange juice that it's able to give off to everything that it goes into. I feel that as a Talmud, and I think I can testify for the whole community, unser Rebbe Reb Dovid was the concentrate of our community in all different facets of Yiddishkeit. In Limud HaTorah, in Avas HaTorah, in Avas Hashem, in Yiras Shamayim, in Avas HaBriyas. He was so packed thick with all of these midas b'chainis. And just being around him in the Sviva and having him in town, and Kol Shekain as a Rebbe, we just went off into us. We came into his sheer bland water. And all of a sudden, slowly, it started by osmosis, taking root into our bones, into our DNA, and we became Talmidim. Ve'emidu Talmidim harbe. Reb Chaim Volozhin is not in Kamos, not Shtelavek, many Talmidim. Ve'emidu Talmidim kama. Shtelavek good, harbe a lot. Reb Dovid's hashpah was harbe. Today I look back and I speak for the many Talmidim who I bumped into in the last couple of weeks. How many of us feel how many things we do in our learning, in our Torah learning, in our davening, in our Avos Hashem, in our Yiras Shamayim, in our diktik b'mitzvahs, in our diktik in halacha, because of the hashpah of our Rebbe. Combining the two pshatim of Hasam Ke'imna, our Rebbe is standing here. Hasam Ke'imna, he so badly wants that his hashpah should continue. It's a chiyuv upon us to learn up, to delve into what was the nekuda, what were the points that were the driving forces of our Rebbe, and what we need to hold on, that chas v'shalom this tzara shouldn't be wasted on us. During those first 2 weeks after the Ptira, I chanced upon a lashon of the Mesilas Yesharim that I felt gave me the insight into the neshama of this exalted person. The Mesilas Yesharim is talking in Perek Ches about the midah of Zrizus, which, like the Rosh Kollel said before, Zrizus is something that, when we picture our Rebbe, Zrizus, it goes hand in hand with his whole Metzias. And the Mesilas Yesharim is making a synopsis, and he's talking there about how people on different levels can hold on to the midah of Zrizus, how they could attain the midah of Zrizus. And he says, U'lishleimei hadas, people on elevated levels, tiyeh ha'ara, the ha'ara for them is, what they need to know is, mitzad ha'chayva, the chiyuvim that a person has back for everything the Rebbeinu Shalom does for him, all the tayvus the Rebbeinu Shalom does for a person, he's mechuyev to pay back. And then he says a lashon, umitzad erech hamaisim v'chashivusam. Umitzad erech hamaisim v'chashivusam. Having value for the maisim that you do. Having value for your avodas Hashem. Understanding the chshivas of every part of avodas Hashem. That was the nekuda of his life. Everything was chashiv. When we picture him talking, he's only talking something chashiv. Everything was good. Everything was chashiv. He spoke about the Roimimus of Klal Yisrael. He spoke about the Chshivas HaTorah. He spoke about the Rabbeinu Shalom. He spoke about human beings. Everything with an erech, with a value and a Chshivas. The Gemara in Gittin says that one of the ways to tell the difference between somebody that's a little bit of a bardas and somebody that's a pure katan without any das is tzror v'zar kloi egois v'noit loi. When you're able to discern, when you're able to tell the difference between something chashuv, an egois, the food, that's something you would take, but something that a rock looks like a nut also, but he's able to tell the difference and throw it away. The ability to look and to recognize chashuv things and run after it, to grab opportunities. That was the lifeline. That was the neshama of our Rebbe. I'd like to go through the different parts of his life, the different parts of Yiddishkeit. And each one of these 3 sections, he was a Mitzuya Nifla. And I want to bring out things that practical stories, practical applications to our own lives that we can hold on to our Rebbe's legacy. Al shloisha dvarim ha'olam oimed. Al ha'torah v'al avoid v'al gmilas chasadim. Every city, every community also stands al shloisha amudim. Al ha'torah v'al avoid v'al gmilas chasadim. I think that the amudim of this city, growing up here and being a Talmud, the amudim of this city, Sayin Torah and the Avodah and Gmilas Chasadim, were all our Rebbe. In Torah, it's Yeduah Meforsim, his Hasmada, like Josh Kaila spoke before. Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, in the early years still, when he was learning in the Mir in Yerushalayim, Reb Chaim Shmulevitz took such a pride in his Hasmada. It was the Yeduah Meforsim the Gemasmid. His friends testified that when he had a young bacher in Philadelphia and in Lakewood, it was Dvarim Pshutim, everybody knew. Dovid Grossman stayed up a whole El Shishi Thursday night, and never once did it affect his first Seder on a Friday morning. Where the Kaichas came from, I don't know. But he went straight to the night with a tremendous Yegiya and Asmada. First Seder, he was there with his Chavrusa till the end. What is this source? What is the Makar? Where does this come from? Such a hasmada. Where does it come from? And the answer is Pashat. Once again, Erech and Chshivas. His Avas HaTorah came from the Erech and the Chshivas that he had for Torah. The value, he understood what Torah does for a person. He understood that Torah is a connection to the Rabbeinu Shalom. Everybody knows the famous, today was made a song already. The Lashon of the Arachaim HaKadosh and Pashat Kisavai. Im hayu bnei Adam. Margishin, if people would feel b'mesikus v'arevus taiva Torah, the sweetness of the goodness of Torah, hayu mishtagim, they would go crazy. Umislatim achareha. They would run after it like Rishigoyim and leave over all the earthly and the physical and materialistic lifestyles. Ki ha-Torah kailelas kol ha-taiva sheba'olam. The Torah includes all goodness of the world, all lies in the Torah. We had a mudmus in our city and as a Rebbe of somebody that was mishtageya u'mislahet achareha. Not so many communities in the world have such a dmus anymore. Mishtageya u'mislahet. The man was shikayra v'loy miyayin. He was drunk over a word of Torah. From that same Makar came not just Hasmadas HaTorah, but Chshivas for every Vart in Torah. The Geshmak he had when you told him over a little Vart, a small Knech, a small Deher, a Litvish Deher, a Chsidish Vertel. See, it didn't make a difference to him. If it was Moisef in Yerushalayim and in Abbas Hashem and a Geshmak and learning, he was there. And he had such a value for it. You saw the Simcha all over his face. And the only way he was able to pay you back was to tell you what I said this week, what I said on a Rashi in this week's Parsha, what I said on a Rambam, what I said on a Chazal, and what I said on a Taisvis. That was the only way he was able to pay you back, because like the Chaim says, there's nothing worth more than the Torah, and that was the best payment to share another Dvar Torah with you. From the same makar of Erech and Chshivas of Torah came his Frischkeit in learning. When the B'nayik Sheba'elam, a person learns so many years, or for that matter does anything for so many years, they get burnt out, they lose their wind, they wither. This was not our Rebbe. It was said over by Hilvaya. Last year by his son Moshe's chasana, he's standing under the chuppah there with a minute or two until the kala came down. And he bent down to Moshe and he said, Moshe, I'm getting older. Be mispalel that I should be able to have the frischkeit to learn, and I should still be able to learn like a young person. This is what he's asking. This is what he's asking his son to be mispalel for under the chuppah. Because this meant the world to him. This is what he was. And without that, he felt like he was a dead person. The Nitziv, in this past week's Parsha, says on the Pasuk, Umesharsa Yeshua ben Nun nar lo yomish b'taycha ayel. Pella, 56 years old Yeshua was. He lived all of 110. He was more than halfway through his life an accomplished Talmid Chacham, the right-hand man of Moshe Rabbeinu, Misharsai. And yet the Torah testifies that Yeshua ben Nun was a nar. Nar is a young person. So the Nitziv, because when he was Layamish B'taycha Ayel, when he sat in Ola Shel Torah, when he sat and he learned, he retained the Maila of Nar. He didn't learn like a person that was starting to lose his wind. Every day when you saw him in the Beis Medrash, it looked like that was that first day, like a young yeshiva bacher entering yeshiva, that he's conquering, he's ready to conquer the Olam HaTorah. He's ready to grow and be kind of madregas. That's how Yeshua ben Nun looked. And not just that, he's Moisef. He's Moisef, the Lashon Lo Yamish is a Lashon future, Lashon Asid. It should have said Lo Yamash Mitaycha Ayel. So the Heilige Nitziv, when you looked at Yeshua ben Nun in the Beis Medrash, he sat there so anchored and with such a geschmack in his learning that you were able to testify on him right then and there that this person will be La Yamish Mitaycha. He will never leave the Allah Shel Torah. Those of us that saw our Rebbe in the Beis Medrash, those of us that saw our Rebbe giving a shir, those of us that saw our Rebbe saying over any Dvar Torah, were able to be made. Those of us that saw him in his Sforim room, that he called it, in his study, sitting and learning with the pile of Sforim. Oi, on Eidos Nemani you're able to say about him, Lo Yamish B'taycha Ayel, this man will never leave the Kaisle Beis Medrash. He'll never have a geschmack in anything else in the world besides for Torah. Because of this same Makar, the Erech, the value and the Chshivas that he had for Torah, he was a Rachman on anyone that didn't have such a Shaykhs to Torah. And he did everything in his power to make a kesher between anyone that he came into contact with and the Torah. We taka say every day, and later on I was told that during Shiva, when they were davening for the Amid, they saw underlined in his siddur. This was a relatively new siddur. That means we're talking about a man around 70 years old. And he had underlined in his siddur the words Avinu, Ava Rachman, Amirachem, Rachim Aleinu. V'seiv Libeinu. This is the tefillah. To have the heart, to be able to sit at Harav learning, Lilmaid Ulalamed. This was underlined in his siddur. This is what his bakashas were in life. And anyone that didn't have the kesher to Torah, he had rachmanis on them. This bakasha, Avinu Avarachman, without Torah, it's a rachmanis case. Rachim Aleinu, v'seim b'libeinu. And he felt that. And he did everything he can to be makar of anybody, to have a geschmack and a kesher to Torah. It was said over in Lakewood that he met a boy in the airport on the way to Los Angeles. He didn't know him. He never met him. He asked him who he was. He asked him where he's going. He was going to LA. Why are you going to LA? He said, I'm going to the rehab on Hauser. Reb Dovid said, no, so let's make a Seder. How many people here know that once or twice a week he drove down Hauser and had a Seder with a bacher there in the rehab? That was a rachmanis to him. A bacher's going to sit over there and he's not going to have a shaykhis to Torah. This is the grass to rachmanis. And he made a Seder, he made sure that he holds on tight. I was told by somebody when I met him over these last few weeks, and he told me that when his father, one of the mispalim of this base medrash, a couple of years ago had a serious brain surgery and he was in the hospital for a little while. Rabbi Grossman came every single day with his brown paper bag, with his tapes, to switch the tapes. Which one did you listen to? Which one didn't you listen to? He made the trip out there. His time was precious, as was said before. But he went down to the hospital every day. A rachmanis of a yid, he's lying in the hospital. He's not going to be able to learn. Chach, let him listen to my shiurim. And he took it upon himself to go down there and switch the tapes and take back and come up with new tapes that will be interesting to this particular yid. From the same makar of chshivus and erech, for the value of Torah, was also, as was said before, nitzul hazman, using every minute fully. It's scary to say, but I overheard somebody saying, if Reb Dovid Grossman would come back and relive his life, what would he do different? I don't know. He used that every single minute for Avodas Hashem, constantly on the run. Every minute was chashuv to him. He was running from this shir to that chavrusa, from that chavrusa to the next chavrusa, and then when everything subsided at somewhere in the AM hours of the night, he sat down and he was his own chavrusa. He used that every minute. To us as Talmidim, the little bit that we could say for ourselves, that we have a little bit of a chshivus for a Seder, for coming to a Seder on time, for using out the time of a Seder. I think we could trace it back, and I speak b'shem Talmidim that I bumped into the last couple of weeks. We could trace it back to Reb Dovid's hashpah. That word Seder was clapped into us with such a thump. Seder. When he would call us in from the dining room, right off the base medrash, he didn't have to say more than one word. Seder. We saw it written all over his face. The pain that a bacher could be fooling around in the middle of a Seder. A Seder is a kviyas. A Seder is a zman that you're sitting in front of Gemara with the Shechina opposite you. And it was so real, we took it from him. Because it was so real, because that's the way he lived his life. I was told that somebody by the Shiva came in and said that he remembers when his son was a Talmud. And he had an orthodontist appointment on a Friday, towards the end of Seder. And Rabbi Grossman said, no. He should stay till the end of Seder, push it off till later in the afternoon, and I'm going to drive him to the orthodontist appointment, because he can't miss Seder. And it was so real. This chshivas, this erech that he had for Torah, brought him to one of the programs that was the pride and joy of our city for many years. The yeshivas bein hazmanim that he was miyasid. In those days, Rabbi say, there wasn't all the Mesivta style camps today, where Baruch Hashem were zeicha. The yeshiva Baruchim don't have to fall madregas during their summer bein hazmanim. They could learn starim a day and have fun in the afternoon. There wasn't all of that. It was either full-fledged camp or sitting at home and doing nothing. Rabbi Grossman couldn't handle that. A yeshiva bacher, he was kind of madregas the whole year. He's going to waste away his bein hazmanim. He's going to waste time. It can't be such a thing. Bnei Torah. It costed him his bein hazmanim, Rabbi say. Every Rebbe needs a bein hazmanim. They put in hard work during the year. And he put in a hard work day and night. And he needed that bein hazmanim. What was his geschmack of a Bein Hazmanim? When he walked into that Beis Medrash and Bochurim from the best yeshivas around the country, from Riverdale and from Philadelphia, from Passaic, and we brought in friends, and they came and they saw, and he walked into the Beis Medrash and he saw a whole Beis Medrash with a Kol Torah, with Bochurim, doing Bein Hazmanim, sitting and learning. Oh, that was for him Bein Hazmanim. He didn't need anything more. That was the biggest geschmack for him. That was the most relaxing thing. If it wouldn't have been that way, he would have been uptight the whole Bein Hazmanim. Somebody told me this week, a friend that came, one of those Bein Hazmanims, and he said that the Bochurim once planned a trip to Yosemite for one day. And that's a drive, it's a full day's trip. They were just going to take off one day. Rabbi Grossman was not happy about it. He tried to convince them out of it. They were from the East Coast. They needed to come back to the East Coast and say that they went to Yosemite. So he had to relent. And they didn't know, what does he care that they go to Yosemite for a day in the Floyes HaBoire? Until he came to the car when they were packing, and he bent down to one of the Bochurim, and he said, Moshe, please learn at least for 5 minutes. That's all he wanted. He was fine with the Bochurim going and seeing the Floyes HaBoire, but he was nervous that Hillik and Bochurim are going to go on a Bein Hazmanim day without Torah learning that he couldn't handle. And he fought it until he couldn't, but he begged them at least 5 minutes, shouldn't go a day without learning Torah. This chshivas that he had for Torah brought him to be Dovid in his Rabbeim. He was not a young man and an accomplished Talmid Chacham. He could have made decisions on his own. He was making decisions for other people. But his own life, he didn't make a move. He didn't make a move without his Rabbeim, without his Rosh Yeshiva. That's because he had the chshivas for a Messiah HaTorah. An earlier generation, his Rebbe is someone that's passing on the Das Torah from previous generations. And to him that meant the world. And his Das was batal u'mavatal. Didn't matter what his rutzin was. If the Reshiva Rebellion said one way, or Yibadal Chaim Taimim, the Reshiva Reb Shmuel Kamenetsky said one way, he was there. That's it. There's nothing to talk about. Not just to live Ma'asrei Torah, but to a sefer that he learned Torah from. The chshivas for Svarim. Rabbi Altuski said over by the Shiva on Maisa Neura. He said that after Rabbi Grossman had a surgery, a couple of years ago he had a surgery, a chomedik brain surgery. And after the surgery, even after he was in recovery, but he couldn't see yet. So Rabbi Altuski happened to be there. So if you can't see, what do? You don't schmooze. You hold the Gemara, and Rabbi Altuski reads from the Gemara. And you learn. He was out for a couple of hours. He didn't learn. So the first thing he wanted to do was learn. Rabbi Altuski was reading from the Gemara until he said, Reb Dovid, I'm reading for the Gemara. Why are you holding the Gemara? Without batting an eyelash, he said, Vaseis, ki heim chayenu. How can you leave going to Gemara? See or not see? This is my Gemara. This is my lifeline. When he would fly on an airplane, he came with his rollie. What was in there? A couple of folded up begadim. The rest was svarim. His Ashes Chayil used to ask him, why don't you open up the svarim before we leave? I'll make you copies. And you come with a little small folder with photocopies, and you learn on the plane. He wouldn't hear of it. I need to learn from my ripped up Mishnah Brura. I need to learn from my ripped up Gemara and my Rambam, my Shulchan Aruch. That was his life. The chvivas that he had for his sefer that's giving him Torah. Ki hem chayenu. This chshivas brought him to a tremendous ava for his Talmidim. The Rambam says, Kishem she'atalmidim chayovim b'chvayid harav, kach harav tzorech lechabed es hatalmidov ulekarvan. Our Rebbe, who was medactic in every sif cotton in halacha, was mekayim this Rambam to the nth degree. Kach Harav tzorich lechavi this talmidov ulekarvan. What he didn't do for a Talmud. And the Rambam says, uleoyavan, to love them. Shehem habanim, those are the children. Hamahanim ba'olam hazeh uleolam haba, that gives them pleasure in this world and in the next world. This Ava was only because his kesher was through Torah. The Balaturim says in Parashas Vayigash, "V'nafshay kshura b'nafshay." Zog the Balaturim, kshura is the gematria Torah. Kuf and shin is tough. Torah, the kesher nafshi that a person has, is only through Torah. All other friendship are not the real thing. On nefesh, kshura b'nefesh is only through Torah, and that's what he had with his talmidim. These were the people that he gave over his soul, his life, his Torah, his kihem chayenu. That's why he was mekusha. This Purim by night, I was zaycha. I was sitting, I don't go to more than 2 or 3 houses to collect for a certain stock of somebody that relies on me. And I went to a house, and the balabas there, a yedid of mine, gave me $1,000 check. Before I left, I got $1 million check. His brother was sitting there, and he says, "Wait, you're from LA, are you a Talmuder of Dovid Grossman?" I say, "Yeah." He says, "Let me tell you a story. I was a bacher learning in the Yeshiva Zichron Melech in Brooklyn, Reb Chaim Epstein's Tzadik Levrachas Yeshiva. One day there's a Yid that walks in. He's scanning the Beis Medrash, he's looking around. He's looking like he's looking for something. I was schmoozing with my friend," he tells me, in the middle of the Beis Medrash. He made a beeline to me, sat me down, and he said, "You know, you look like the bacher that's able to be mesader things in this yeshiva." This was in the middle of a summer's man. He said, "This Elul, I have a Talmud that's coming to this yeshiva. It is the son of Dr. Benjamin Gross. He's coming to this yeshiva. He's asid to have a bright future. But things have to work out. I want you to take it upon yourself to make sure that things work out with him, with chavrusas and everything else that a bacher needs so that yeshiva should go well." Out of nowhere, he said, "I don't know who this man was." He said, "You look out for him. His name's Avrami Gross, and when he comes, just you take the achrayas." He said, "I sure did, because I never saw a Rebbe like that." From this chshivas and from this erech of Torah came his Mesiras Nefesh for Torah, his Mesiras Nefesh for Abbatz's Torah. Whatever it took to be Mavaz himself, to be Meiser Nefesh, to live under any condition, it made no difference to him. If it was for Torah, then he was there. I don't know if the Olam heard an unbelievable Meiser the day, a couple of hours before his Ptira. His son Meir was thinking of was clearing what to do with his son. He had gotten accepted to Philadelphia Yeshiva, and he was mesupik if he should keep him in town or send him out of town. And that day that Reb Dovid went around, that Sunday we went around to visit all his children, he came to the house and said hello to the grandchildren, and then he pulled Meir and his wife into the study, and he said, "Tell me, what are the tzaddim? What are the tzaddim why you would want to send in town or out of town? What are the milas of out of town?" And they gave him a list. "And what are the milas of in town?" And they gave him a list. And he said, "If you would have told me only reasons to send him out of town and no reasons to keep him home, I would have told you, keep him home. But now that you told me that you're mesupik, you have svaris to keep him home, so then sending him to Philadelphia is going to go along with Mesiras Nefesh. Now you can send him to Philadelphia, because Torah can only be matzliach if it's done with Mesiras Nefesh. Without Mesiras Nefesh, if there's no tzaddim to keep him home, there's no chance he's going to be matzliach. But since it's going to be hard for his mother to send him away because she has reason that she wants to keep him at home, that's Mesiras Nefesh, then there's chances he'll be matzliach." Rabbi said, this wasn't just the Das Torah that they were zeicha to a couple of hours before his ptira. This was a hesped on himself. A Gatz 11, who thinks about the Mesiras Nefesh for Torah anymore? This was a Yid we had in our midst a life of Mesiras Nefesh for Torah and understood that without the Mesiras Nefesh, or Akapanim, to be ready for Mesiras Nefesh. Like some of the Mefarshim Taich, Pazma Melach Toichel Maim B'Msura Tishta doesn't mean you have to actually go and sit and eat dry bread. It means that you have to be ready to eat dry bread and eat measured water to be able to put yourself to any condition and still to Zechariah learning. This was the story of his life. Rabbi said this was the first Amud that we need to be mechazakin for the erech and the chshivas of Torah, Dvar Torah, Bnei Torah, anything having to do with Chizuk HaTorah. We should chas v'shalom leave this city rattling by the foundations. The next Amud is Avodah. Avodah, who doesn't remember his tefillah? The tefillah, the Avodah Shebelev, the lev that he put into a tefillah. Like one of his sons said over by the Levaya, my father never came on time to davening. He was always 10 minutes early. That comes from a chshivas. To understand what it means, I'm going to be an Oived L'Pnei HaMelech. Who doesn't remember him coming in here bein Azmanim for the mincha, come up minutes early, scanning the Beis Medrash and walking around and patting Yeshiva Bachram on the back and giving them chizuk, telling them to keep it up, and then stand here behind the bima, button his jacket, stand by the stender there, and shtelevek a davening and a shmaya esrei. That was a tmus for all of us. Who doesn't remember, as Talmidim, his Pesukei de Zimra? Who doesn't remember his Yaitzer Arubayr at the beginning of Big's Kriya Shema when he sat down as an engine, like a person sitting down to the best piece of steak in a restaurant. That's why he sat down to Yaitzer Arubayr. Who doesn't remember his Kriya Shema with Kavana, with all the Hidurim, with the Re'isa Moisais and Skartems? That's where we learned this from. Who doesn't remember at the end of every Heishmei Rabbah, where Dovid was in the Beis Medrash, you heard Le'olam, U'omei Omaya. Every Yeshmei Rabbah was such kavana, Kalayin Amen Yeshmei Rabbah B'chol Koichai. The other part of Avodah, the Diktuk B'mitzvahs. Every time he went to the East Coast, he bought himself a new pair of tzitzis, Hidur Mitzvah. His Nala fun of the mitzvahs, Rashi says, Talis not, tzitzis not. Who doesn't remember his pride in his esrogim, or in anyone's esrog for that matter? I was told that there was a video taken of somebody this past Sukkot that was just videoing him checking his own esrogim, checking this fellow came to show Rabbi Grossman his esrogim, to check it on his children's esrogim, with such pride, with such a sparkle in his eye. Ashena esrog. And it's a pella that somebody that was the furthest thing from a landscaper. Every minute of his was precious by the stender. He used to sit there and water his esrog tree that he got from Rabbi Yehuda, those Matthias that he got from Rabbi Yehuda, because it's a mitzvah. He took such pride in it, he spent time in it to cultivate it. His sukkah, Gewalt. Who doesn't remember when he sat in his sukkah and he said the word Sila de Menusa with his hands up and his eyes up? Every time he said that word Sila de Menusa was with the hands up, with his geschmack in the mitzvah. He didn't come into his sukkah just to be yaitza. He was one of the first people before it was in style. He brought in his couch. He brought a 3-shelf svarm shank there, because that was his sukkah. Bikfiyas, keish v'kei taduru. If that's the way he lived in his house in front of a sefer, that's the way he lived in his sukkah. Dvarim b'telim in his sukkah. Just a year and a half ago, I was zeichet to be in sukkahs, and a couple of my friends were here too. And then we went to visit him on sukkahs. He had to go out in middle to make a phone call. He came back in, and we were schmoozing like Yedidim that don't see each other too often, reminiscing about people. He stood there for 5 seconds, heard where the conversation was heading. He says, no. The Rambam says, and he went on to tell us a shtickle Torah at the hair in the Rambam. Not in his sukkah, no. His chviv is for mitzvahs. His chshiv is for that sukkah. Knew no bounds, and we were not going to be metamed by any means by talking that dvar b'telim, and for sure not lashon hara or chilus. Hilchos Shabbos, we were zeicha to learn by him. Every nekud in Hilchos Shabbos, down to the kugel that the Mishnah Brura's meramas to, and down to the Tosfos Shabbos, and down to every little kutzah shel yud in halacha that he knew cold and that he was medaktik in. The Shabbos Kodesh, the way he prepared for his Shabbos with such a geschmack, the preparation for Shabbos by him was an avodas Hashem mamish, not chas v'sholom and oil, because he had a chshivas and an erech for it. Hoshana Rabbah in this city. Today it's alive. There's such a thing, a concept that Bachrim, you can stay up Shana Rabbah by night and daven v'sikim with Dovid Grossman's minion. That was something he put an avodah into. He couldn't handle it. Shana Rabbah is such a chashuv a day. It's going to go to waste. You spend it on a mattress. Can't do that. We got to prepare for the tefillas. We got to sit a whole night and learn. And today Los Angeles is Yadua that there's a shir. Hey, I remember when he went around convincing Bachrim for the first time. I'll say a little shir and I'll learn geshmak, and he made a geshmak for them. And today it's a davar, something that's accepted. This is another amud that we need to make sure our whole shtat doesn't rattle with his absence. And the third one is Gemilas Chasadim. This is a man that looked at another person with such an ayin taiva. Everybody was good. There was nobody, I think everybody in this crowd can testify, that they never heard a negative word about anybody out of his mouth. And if you started, he switched the conversation, or he found something good to talk about. Rabbi Yoina talks about the difference between a chacham and a ksil. A chacham could walk by a dead carcass and say, "Oh, it smells, it's disgusting." And a chacham walks by it and say, "Wow, what beautiful white teeth." This was his koyach, because he had chshivas and erech for everything. He lived his whole life doing for other people. Sayin Torah and Sayin Gemilas Chasadim. Beginning the Akdama Nefesh HaChaim, Rav Chaim Volozhin, his son, brings that his father used to tell him, Koi hayu dvarai elai tomid. Constantly Rav Chaim Volozhin used to say, Ha'adam lo nivra el lo hayel achrini. People were created to help others. He justified his creation. His whole life he was running around seeing what he could do for others, whether it was Baruchnius or Begashmius. The Rambam says it. The Rambam says in Hilchas Deis, Perik Hey. The Rambam says, if you were the Hanhagas of a Talmud Chacham, but in short, one of the things he says is, Misaper b'shvach chaveroi ve'enoi misaper b'gnusoi klal. Once again, our Rebbe, the Grossman Medaktik and Halacha, Misaper b'shvach chaveroi ve'enoi misaper b'gnusoi klal. Never ever a gnus came out of his mouth. He was mevater on everything. He wouldn't let pettinesses get to him. Weiter, weiter, weiter. Doesn't matter. Whatever happens, begein weiter. About B'nai Torah Befrat, he was concerned about them. He did for them. He had Bachrim sleeping in his house where he felt that the Hashpah in his household would be stronger. To mold them as B'nai Torah stronger than the households they were growing up in. He took them in. He learned with them. He made sure he took care of them and sent them to the right yeshivas. And he was Matzliach. For a balabas that was kivei itim l'Torah, the chshivas that they heard from him. What are you learning? Keep it up. I see you're learning stark here. Constant comments of chizuk when he saw that anyone was doing something right. This is another amud that we have to make sure to hold on to. The Gemara Ma'id Katan of Chafei Amid Beis says, Ki nach nafshi der Reb Zera, Posach ahu savdena. As Maspid said, by the hesped of Reb Zera, a whole memra at the end he says, Oy no lo amra rekes, ki ovda kleichem dosa. Woe is to the city Rekes, which Rashi says it's Tveria, that it lost its kleichem, its most desirable keli, its crown jewel. We see from this Gemara that the city where a Talmud Chacham is in, the city has to cry out, of the Kleichem Dasa. Rabbi say, the three amudim of our city, the crown jewel of our city, the demos that we had in front of our eyes without realizing it until we don't have it. Oy no la omra Los Angeles ki of the Kleichem Dasa. We have to be mechazik in his values, have values for Torah, for avodah, for tefillah, for diktik mitzvahs, for Yerushalayim, for Gemilas Chasadim, for thinking of another Yid, so that at least this sorrow will have had some worthwhile effect. And we shouldn't, excuse my expression, have a buried treasure. Maybe she's all helping that the mishpacha should have an achama, the shtad should have an achama. And the neshama should have a nechama by seeing all of us holding on to his drachim, being machshav what he was machshav, and that Hashem will be able to get together with him proudly and say, Osinu shlichuseinu, at the time of the kitzah v'rananu shayknei yafa b'meirav yameinu amen.
There's not much left to say after such a gewaltige hesped. But I'm an Eidim, and I would like to give over a few personal stories, personal things that he told me. I would like to begin with an Indian which I haven't heard said by many people, and that is he took great pride in the city of Los Angeles. He loved to speak about, to me at least, how he saw the city of Los Angeles grow. And especially he loved the younger light that created that growth. He would have a special ava to the younger light and a special ava to the people, the Lomdei Torah of the city. And he loved to talk about it again and again, and he told me an amazing story that took place when he was a younger man in Lakewood. This was when there were 10 younger light being asked to come to Los Angeles. And Rabbi Bess is sitting here. He's one of the younger light. And they almost were getting ready to go, but then some of the younger light decided to back out. Because Los Angeles is a place of Hollywood. It's a place, not a kosher place. How are we going to bring up children? So, Rab Nosson Wachtfeigel, Zechronel Levrocha, called them into the office, 10 younger light. And he says, I hear you want to back out. Is it true? So they're all looking at each other. Is it true? Yeah, finally it comes out that it's true. Why? So one of the younger light says, I hope the Mashkiach understands, but it's a place of tumah. It's not a place to bring up children. He says, you don't think that I know that? I'm also American just like you. I know that. But that's why you should go to Los Angeles. So everybody's looking at each other. What does he mean? That's a bedavkidik reason to go. And he gave a beautiful moshel, a very stark moshel, and it's important for all of us to hear it, because if my shver would be seeing the Torah sitting here, he would be full of pride, like he spoke to me all the time. He said, let's say somebody would be making a dark room, and developing pictures, you can't have any light in the dark room. And there would be 3 bulbs, and each one would be giving off a different wattage, and you have to cover it with a cloth. So one, you could cover it with 1 cloth. The other takes 2 cloths. The third takes 3 cloths, black cloths to cover it over. Now I have a dark room. So when I want to refer to one of the lights, I say the one with only 1 cloth, the second one with 2 cloths, the third with 3 cloths. The world is a dark room, says Rab Nosson. The whole world is one big dark room. It's Helen. The Rebbeinu Shalom is hiding himself. He's hiding his Shechina. He's hiding his Ruchnius. He's making us find it, but he's making it on purpose that we should not see the world, the Ruchnius. If there's a lot of tumah in a certain place, that's a siman. That under there lies a lot of kedusha, and you need a lot of tumah to cover it over. It needs to be covered over with a lot of tumah. It's davka a place where you. I once asked him a question on Shabbos, Friday night, when he would come to my house. Friday night, when he would come to my house, it would be an unusual experience. The whole Shabbos, the whole family, the Fisher family would have an aliyah. My shver would sit at the head of the table like a melech. He would make kiddush. He would stand. He would make kiddush. He would be standing and being mekabel like an eved in front of the Shabbos Malchus. He would be being made on Maaseh Bereshis. The Smiris, everything was in a very special way. And we would never talk anything, it sounds familiar like the previous speech, that's all we have to say. We would never talk anything mundane. But I tried, one Shabbos, I decided I'm going to ask him a question. I want to see what's going to happen. Now this question was something which I was sure he wouldn't answer. It's a question about himself. He never spoke about himself, like who am I, talk about himself like that. And generally, he didn't like talking about the past. People like to talk about the past because it's not mechayev us to do anything. What was, we talk about history, we talk about this, we talk about that. It's not mechayev us. He liked to talk about now. Let's talk about now. How can we steig now? How can we grow now? Don't talk to me about what happened, what was. But I decided, he also didn't like to talk about the future. I never ever, I don't think I ever, heard him say, I will do something. I'll do it. Many times he needed to do something, like he had to give me a check or something. Many times he had to do something. He had to do something. I never heard him say, I will do it. He never said that. He said, I'll try, maybe, could be. Whenever he said that, he said those words out of his mouth, it always happened. But I never heard him say, in the future, it's going to happen. So he didn't like to speak about the past, he didn't like to speak about the future. What did he like to speak about now? How we can mechazik ourselves now. Okay, but I decided I'm going to throw a question at him because I was interested in the answer. I asked him, Abba, when was the time that you decided to be Moiser Nefesh to Yiddishkeit? Moiser Nefesh to Torah. Put your whole life and your whole drive and your whole unusual kaiches into steiging and into becoming the Talmid Chacham that you became. I didn't phrase the question that way. But I asked him, when was the time? I was sure I would get his classical, no, let's go weiter, let's talk about something else. But he took the question seriously, and he answered the question, and he said it, and answered it was so shocking, that years later I asked him, this was your answer, right? And he said, yes. I thought that, so what did he answer? I thought that the answer would be, sometime in Philadelphia. No, it was in Lakewood. He was a bocher in Lakewood. And he said he was at a chasana, and Reb Shneir Kotler met him at the chasana, and he gave him a kiss. He said, then, that was the time, from then on he decided, that's it. He is going to devote all his unusual energy, his unusual koiches, to learning Torah. A big zach. We see from here that how much Ava from a Rebbe to a Talmud can work. And he said to himself, if the Torah is so powerful that it can take someone like Reb Shneir Kotler and be Mekasher, Reb Shneir, to me, and make him give me a kiss, this is a Torah which I want to devote my life to. And this is something which I want to give all my energies to. And from then on, he became what he became. An amazing thing, but I feel that there's another step to this. I feel that he was always trying to give this kiss to others. He was always trying to give the chizik that he got from Rab Shneir. He was always trying to give it to other people. And when he was machazik people, when he gave kavod to people, when he told people how he respects what they're doing, he always did it. He was giving over the chizik that he got when he was a bocher. But not everything is ava. There was a lot of yira. He worked very hard. He was a person, he had two sides to him. He was a person that worked very hard on himself. And this is something which we need to learn from. I'll tell you another story which teaches us how his yira, how he worked on himself. It's a slightly personal story. About when I was a younger man in Lakewood, I get a phone call. And the phone call is, there are 9 younger light, very choshev younger light, that would like to come to Los Angeles, and they're inviting me to be number 10. So it sounds very good. Choshev younger light, mitzuyonim, to sit and learn with 9 younger light, and it's an opportunity to steig. And I wanted to jump at it. But then I had second thoughts. I was thinking to myself, I'm so used to learning in a big yeshiva. My whole life I learned in yeshivas, big yeshivas, where I could find a chavrusa here, I could find a chavrusa there. I could learn this if I want, I could learn that. I need space. To be confined in a constricting environment of 9 Yugalite, even though there's such big mitzuyonim, but it might be not good for me. And I did my investigations, and I spoke to people, and chachamim, and groise miyaitzim, and they told me there is such a thing. If you feel that way, you have a right to feel that way. And maybe it's an idea that you should not go. If you want to steig in a certain way, this is not the place for you. I didn't know what to do. And I called my shver, Zechroni Levrocha, and he told me that he agrees with me too. He agrees with the Miyatzim. He agrees that there is such a thing, and if you need your space, you should have your space. So I was ready to hang up the phone. But then he says the following, and none of the other Miyatzim ever told me that, and this is only something which a shver can tell a neighbor. He told me, but there's one thing that you can do, that if you do that, you should come. What is that? He says, make up with yourself that whatever you're going to do, whatever is going to happen, any situation that you're going to be in, make it work. If you make up with yourself, you are going to make it work in any situation, even if things are not working out exactly the way you thought they won't work out. Make up that it'll work, then I think you should come. This was only somebody who lives their life that way is able to tell someone else to do that. Only the legendary Masmid, the younger man who finished Shas and became a Baki B'Shas, the person who accomplished so much in his lifetime, only such a person who worked on himself with such an intensity and so much koiches he put into his life, into reaching his goal of becoming a true Talmid Chacham and a true Ma'arabit Torah. Only somebody who had hardships, only that such a person can ask someone else to do that. So what happened? I didn't tell him that, but I was thinking in my mind, okay, you'll help me. I'll do it, and I'll try my best, but I don't have your kaiches. But you'll help me make it work, even though it's a hard job. So what happened? I came to Los Angeles, and I became closer with my shver, and I saw his avodah. I saw how he works that way. I saw, like you said earlier, his Kriya Shema. I looked at his Kriya Shema, the way he was mevatel himself with such a bittul in his Kabbalah Sol Malchus Shamayim. I saw the way he made Kiddush, the way he stood there with such a bittul to the Rebbeinu Shalom, with such an anivus. I realized that he is a person who works on himself, and I got chizuk from that. And I made up, whatever will take place, I'm going to try my best to make it work. And Baruch Hashem, it did. And this is something which we all have to learn, to have this mizug of avos habriyos, of wanting to help other people, of appreciating the potential in someone else, but also to work on oneself and to be monfenzich and to make ourselves grow. I want to point out one more thing on this subject. Many of us, we see someone with the power of my shver, Zechron Levrocha. He was physically strong. He was spiritually strong. He had so many powerful koiches. We tend to say, that's Rabbi Grossman. Yes, he's someone special. What am I? I can't learn from that. How can we learn from the koiches of my shver, Zechron Levrocha? How can we learn from his unusual talents for ourselves? I would like to suggest that a way to take out, and we should all take out something from his Moedige Koiches, and it should be a schus for his Goris and Neshama. There's a Chayvis Halvovus. It'll be short. There's a Chayvis Halvovus. He describes an Onav. He says an amazing sentence about an Onav. What's an Onav? Sahalosoi befonav, ve'evloi believer. That his sahola, his excitement, his happiness is on his face, but his evil, his sadness is in his heart. So the kasha is obvious. We understand why his sadness is in his heart, because he's fully, he recognizes his weaknesses. He recognizes where he's lacking. Why does he have sahalosoi befonav? Why is he happy? Why is an Onav happy all of a sudden? So Pashut, you might want to learn. It means Evlei Beliboi, but he doesn't want to show it to everybody because he wants everybody to feel good. He doesn't want everybody to see, so he acts. He acts in a happy way. It's not Geshmak. The Mashmoyis is that this is what an Onav is. So Losei Befonov. It's not just an act. It's not just a way of covering over what's in his heart. So this is a kasha on what the Chovos Halevavos means. I once heard from a Choshev Yid, he explained the Chovos Halevavos in the following way, and he brought a story to bring out his point. Only somebody who is not, he's aware of that he's living with the Ribbono Shel Olam. He's not worried about, he's not involved in his imaginary milas. He knows that all his milas come from the Ribbono Shel Olam. Somebody who knows that all his milas come from the Ribbono Shel Olam, such a person is able to truly see his real koiches and know how to use them and know how to steig. A person who is imagining that he's other places, he's not where he needs to be, and he's imagining he has koiches which he doesn't have, he's living in his dimyan, he doesn't know how to steig. How am I supposed to steig? What am I supposed to do? I think I'm this, I think I'm that. I don't know what to do. But a person who's living with the Ribbono Shel Olam, he recognizes everything he has comes from the Ribbono Shel Olam. Now he's able to look at himself honestly. You want to look at yourself honestly? So now you know who you really are. So now you can steig. So an Onov has a tzoholo. He has a happiness because he knows who he is. And therefore, he knows what he needs to do. The person was telling me an interesting story. A very interesting story. And I would never believe the story. But I heard it from Rabbi Yaakov Galinsky himself when he came to Calabasas. You're going to hear a story, an amazing story. I don't know if it's so famous. Rabbi Yaakov Galinsky said that he came to the Chazon Ish, and it was in the early days in Bnei Brak, and the Chazon Ish, and then the government had just put a street lamp on the corner, far away from the Chazon Ish's house, about 100 yards from the Chazon Ish's house. And the Chazon Ish tells Rabbi Yaakov Galinsky, he says, Rabbi Yaakov, was sagst du auf mein, I don't know how to say a street lamp in Yiddish. What do you say about my street lamp? So Rabbi Yaakov Galinsky knew that such a question you don't answer. So he said nothing. So he waited for the Chazon Ish to say something. He says, "Come, Rabbi Yaakov." Chazon Ish says, "Come, let's go visit the street lamp." As he's walking towards the street lamp, the Chazon Ish says nothing, but then all of a sudden he does something strange. He turns around as he gets closer to the street lamp and he says, "Guck auf unsere," I think it's Schotten in Yiddish. Look at our shadow. Guck auf unsere shadow. Look at our shadow. Look how big you are. Yaakov Galinsky must have been smaller a little bit. Look at our shadow. Look at me. Look at my hand. I'm picking up my hand. You're picking up your hand. Look, we look so tall. Then as they got closer to the street lamp, they became smaller. And as they came actually to the street lamp, they didn't see themselves at all. So the Chazon Ish says, look at this. The street lamp is a licht. The closer we come to the licht, the more we see we're smaller and smaller until we realize we're insignificant totally. But the further we're away from the Ribbono Shel Olam, the more our shadow looks like we're very, very big. That's a mashal to the Ribbono Shel Olam. The closer we are with the Ribbono Shel Olam, we realize that we're really insignificant. And we really are mo, v'anachnu mo. The further we go away, we start thinking that we have all types of koiches and we look so tall. That is what the Chazon Ish told to Rabbi Yaakov Galinsky. So this Yid said, if a person is not an Onov, we'll say it in the positive way, if a person is an Onov, so what happens if he's an Onov? He realizes the Vanach Mo, and he doesn't look at himself in a grandiose way. And he's able to see who he really is. He's able to recognize, I am a person, and these are my milas, because I see myself clearly. I'm not looking at myself in an exorbitant way. And therefore, I'm able to know what I need to do. What do I need to do? I know what I have to do. I know my koiches. I feel that the tzohola that we saw in my shver's face all the time, he always had a tzohola when he met people, when he wasn't meeting people. He was always happy. The tzohola was the tzohola of an onov. A tzohola of a person who recognizes who he really is. And therefore, since he recognized who he really is, he wasn't looking at himself in an unusually flamboyant way. And he wasn't wondering how I appear in front of people. He was looking at himself who he really was. And since he was looking at himself who he really was, he knew exactly what he had to do. And that was part of his drive. Of course, it was unusual koiches. But that was part of his drive, because he knew exactly what he needs to do at this time. What he needs to do is use his koiches, and he knew his koiches. He needs to use those koiches for the betterment of Klal Yisrael, and for the betterment of himself, to become the unusual Talmid Chacham that he became. And this is something we can take. We should take from this anivis. We should take from this pashtus, this unusual. Whenever you spoke to him, there's always the Rebbeinu Shalom. You can't speak to him more than 3 minutes without him talking about the Rebbeinu Shalom. He was always under that light. He was always under that light, and you couldn't hear from him anything other than the Rebbeinu Shalom. Thank you, Rebbeinu Shalom. And he was living under that light, and therefore that gave him a lot of his koiches. His power came from that. And I would like to go now to another subject. I would like to speak something also a little bit personal. When the shidduch with my wife was read to me, it was read to me in a very interesting way. This is how it was read to me. It was read to me and said, okay, I have a shidduch for you in Los Angeles. Los Angeles, to me, Los Angeles was the moon. Los Angeles. But they said something unusual. She's coming from a house where the Rebbetzin in the house allows the husband to learn as much as he wants. Whatever he wants to do, he's able to learn. Now that is something I never heard, and I don't think other people have heard that too much. And I say this now, this personal story, I say this to you because we have to realize that everything that was being said is because of my shviger. She should have arichas yamim, she should live for the Admei V'es Mishana. We have to recognize that everything that's said is because of my shviger. And for 27 years, my shver and my shviger gave my shver Zechron Levrocha and Yibod L'chaim Toiv Maruch, my shviger, led and guided me and my family with much ava and much chokhmah. And we are looking forward to future guidance from my shviger in many areas. And we hope to continue in the drochim of my shver Zechron Levrocha. And we hope that the whole mishpacha together should be able, with Tchias HaMesim, to be united with my shver Zechron Levrocha. B'meher b'yemein omen.
Ashrei mi sheyesh lo talmid like Naftali Bursting. Ashrei mi sheyesh lo banim K'rei Moshe Fisher. V'chol shab me'em mishpacha. The hour is late. It's not a masiba, it's a hesped. I don't think it has a shus to be mevater if I was asked to say some words to Tevis and Neshama. I'd like to say just one, you say to take a machshava, and hopefully will help everybody have a basis to find a place for all the different things, the unusual and marvelous things that we've heard about Harav Dovid, which I think to a certain extent everyone feels they didn't really know him. It's consistently repeating itself in Eifanim, that a Moira want to think differently about the person that we thought we were rubbing shoulders with for so many years. The Gemara in Brachas, Taftalud Amad Beis, a bekannte Gemara. Die Omer Rabbi Yochanan Ezel ben Olam Haba, Za'asoymech Gula L'Tfilah Shel Arvis. You want to know who's a Ben Olam Haba? Who's the Ben Olam Haba? The answer is somebody who's Soymech Gula L'Tfilah Shel Arvis. Gula means the Bracha Gal Yisrael. And as quickly as possible you get to Shemon Esrei. Maybe there's other brachas that Chazal put in, Gula Richter. But you get a daven the Seder that Chazal said. So Rabbeinu Yoina brought on the Rif, in the back of the Masechta, asks the obvious question. Obviously, to be a Ben Olam Haba, you need some sort of madrega. You have to have some sort of special qualities. So what is it meant to mean that a person is so mechgula l'tfilah and he's zoichet to be a Ben Olam Haba? Baruch Hashem, every Elech Yid does that. Every Yidna does that. Doesn't seem to have any great requirements. What's the accomplishment? So Ben Yonah says two terutzim I think will help us understand the life and the accomplishment of Rabbi Yitzchak Dovid ben Yisrael Mordechai Zechron Livracha. Ben Yonah says like this: Yesh lahakshos b'chilut neish soymech kuulu l'tfilah yesh lo schar kol kach sheben olam haba. What's the big deal? What do you accomplish? V'amar meirei Harav שהטעם שזויכה לשכר גודל כזה בני שהקדוש ברוך הוא כשגאלנו והוציאנו ממצרים היה ליוסנו לא לעבודים. The tachlis and the purpose of Yetzias Mitzrayim was that we should be Avdei Hashem. שנאמר כי עבודי הם אשר הוצאתי אותם מארץ מצרים. These are my servants that I took out of Mitzrayim. Take you out of Mitzrayim, the tachlis of being an Eved Hashem. Or Birchas Gal Yisrael, when you say the brach of Gal Yisrael at night, Mazkir Ba'achesed Shasem Manu Abayir V'Atfil Mazkir Abon Shasem Manu Abayir. As you say the brach of Gal Yisrael, you're articulating point by point the Chazdei Hashem Yetzias Mitzrayim. And the purpose of all of that is to be an Eved Hashem. Zot Rabbeinu Yonah. V'Atfila hi Avodah. Tefillah is a form of Avodah. כדאמינו ועבדת בשם אלוקיכם זהו תפילה, עבודה שבלב. וכשהוא מזכיר יציאת מצרים ומספר מיד, מראה שכמו שעבד שכהן עשה רבו חייב לעשות מצוות רבו, כן הוא מכיר הטובה והגאולה שגאל עשה הבורא ושהוא עבד ועובד עשה. It's not about a person who takes the siddur and he says Gal Yisrael and he says Tefillah. It's a person who takes the siddur and he says Gal Yisrael, and he hears that the Rebbeinu Shem took us out of Mitzrayim. He hears and understands that Kodesh Baruch Hu oisked in Klal Yisrael and did a Maisa that's never been repeated in history, Maisa Begolui of Kvoid Hashem, Efer Makas, Makas Bechoros, Yetzias Mitzrayim, Kriyas Yamsuf, to be Boicher B'Am Yisrael B'Yahavo, and he hears it and he understands it, and he has got to some or other actualize it. And the actualization is in Tefillah. So right away, Nemtzach Tzadavenin. The Pshani follows the Siddur. And Nemtzach Tzadavenin, which davening? A davening which is Avodah Shebelev. Tweede Teretz Zot Rabbeinu Yonah, that a person reads Yetzias Mitzrayim, he understands Yetzias Mitzrayim, V'yerikoi. Yetzias Mitzrayim Shreit B'tochen. What could we have done and what could we have accomplished if HaKadosh Baruch Hu would have taken us out of Mitzrayim? Everything that we had was given to us by the Borei Olam. Then we went in the Midbar, and in the Midbar everything was right of Borei Olam. Kabbalah Satira, Borei Olam. Arboim Shalom B'Midbar, Borei Olam. Eretz Yisrael, Borei Olam. Everything is furnished and provided by the Rebbeinu Shalom. Zakta, Ayi Tracht Yetzias Mitzrayim. Immediately he translated into a tefillah where he's going to ask all his needs from the Rebbeinu Shalom. Where else should he go? That's the lesson he just learned. So Ben Yonah says it's not about a person who davens the right Seder. It's talking about a person who davens, says the Brach of Gal Yisrael, and he's Nisoyer, and he understands, has to translate itself into Avdas Hashem and B'tochen HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and mainly becomes a Ben Olam Haba. I wanted to Moisef HaKneish, the Chvoid HaNiftar HaGadol, Dvarim HaMitiyim, that are matim to show us exactly what he was. You know, there's a Taisis in Masechta Rosh Hashanah, Daf Tezayin Amud Beis. The Mishnah, the Brisa in Tezayin Amud Aleph says that Adam is Nidon Rosh Hashanah, the Gemara Dinoi B'Yom HaKippurim. Every Yid in the world is the Kodesh Baruch is done in Rosh Hashanah, and the Gemara Din is Yom HaKippurim. Rabbi Grossman in Amud Beis, the Gemara says Shlosh Tisvarim Miftach in front of the Rebbeinu Shalom. Tzadikim Gemurim Nechtovim Nechtamim La'alta L'chaim. The Gemara says, Tzadikim are immediately signed to life. So the Taisus, the Rishonim ask, something doesn't make sense here. You have a sugya in Amud Aleph that says everybody is Nidin Rosh Hashanah, and the Gemara Din is B'Yom HaKippurim. And here it says, if you're a tzaddik gomer, it's you nidma Rosh Hashanah, you nidma Rosh Hashanah. So how do you stem the two things line? So Rishonim have mahalchim. Yodua the Tosfos says, every yid has a din on Rosh Hashanah, and it's nigba b'yom kippurim b'nageh to olam hazeh. But there's a din called olam haba. That din for tzaddikim is nigmar v'nichtam b'Rosh Hashanah. Fragt sich the shaila, what do you mean you have a din? Every year there's a din on a yid for olam haba. Baruch Hashem, he's 18 years old, he's going to live another 100 years. There's no rush to make a din about olam haba. Which din on olam haba is he going through that the Gemara should talk about? And it's an annual thing. So I think they bring from Abaran, from other places. Gemara doesn't mean they're paskening which station an olam haba is going to receive, what type of place he's going to get in olam haba. You live in this world, the world that you live in is the way that you see this world. There are people who live in this world, and the whole world is sport. Another person, the whole world is politics. Another thing, the whole world is money. And after we fire all the other chesronis. That's what they live with. That's how they measure opportunity. That's how they get inspiration. That's what they're intimidated by. That's what they look for. You know why a person davens and he can't ask a Kodesh Baruch Hu b'tachon v'chulu? Or why he can't nemzich to tefillah shavodas believe? Very simple. If a person comes to Olam Hazeh and he sees it's a world of opportunity, he can go traveling, he can go eating, he can entertain himself, he can take care of himself. So how much strength can he have to be mashkiya and tefillah? What type of shaykhs does he have to be tachon? So his kesher to Olam Hazeh makes it impossible for him to fulfill a smichas gula l'tefillah. He's not going to translate his experience in Yetzias Mitzrayim into stand and schwitz and try and give voice of davening, hakaras Hashem, who's giving this to me, Shabach to the Rebbeinu Shloshim, Avos Hashem is Baruch. He's not shaykh to that. He's all giving out opportunities. He could be outside doing something else. He's going to have b'tochen HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He goes in the business. He loves to do business activity. He loves to be marvich. He loves to be an oisher. The Gemara means, Eze ben olam haba, you've made a decision. The world you live in is the world of olam haba. I'm living here in a praise door which brings me to olam haba. I'm a ben olam haba today doesn't mean I have a ticket to go to olam haba. A ben olam haba means I became a ben olam haba over here. Right now I'm a ben olam haba. And I come in a base medrash and I see Kanai Nahara, a ribui from Talmidei Chachamim. Das ist was Dovid had gesagt. He was sitting over there the last time I saw him. And he told the Talmud who came in that the Shagazaria started crying. He said, Wie kann ich olam haba? Sitzt mit der Gemara, gelernt, einfach Geschmack. How could I have an olam haba left? Because the Shagazaria felt he was in olam haba. He said, I gehe in olam haba. Ich lebe in olam haba. I'm right now in olam haba. For a person who's in olam haba, davening is a Geschmack. That tzlocha from davening is davening, not that you get something for it. That tzlocha of the Baal B'toch is not the pshat he's going to get from Hashem, is that he feels miftacho, mishanti, and miftachi is on the Rebbeinu Shloshim. And that hargosha, that kesher, that yachas, das ist the Kreiskeit von seiner Yid, the Kreiskeit von der Ben Torah. That's olam haba, it's olam haba, olam hazeh. And that's what Tosfos means in Rosh Hashanah. The din that you're going to be a ben olam haba, Kodesh Baruch Hu is b'syachis to ben olam haba in a completely different way. He sends him mitzvahs, and he gives him a rebbetzin who's a messiah, and he gives him children who mechazikim, and he gives him talmidim. You ask yourself, everybody understood who Dovid Grossman was a yid in Yushas. He's a yid who had yidis in many areas of Torah. He was happy to learn with any person who wanted to learn. He never once complained, I'm giving a higher share, a lower share, a middle share, this bacha, yana bacha. Never heard that from him. I met him many times, spoke to him many times. When he had his small yeshiva Sachaim, he never once said, maybe you can send me some bachra, maybe this. He was happy, bechelka, somebody wants to learn. The Rebbeinu Shloshim gave me a chance, I'll do that mitzvah. Not everybody can do that. It's easy to talk about it, not so many people can do it. How can he do it? Because he lived in olam haba. In olam haba, the Rebbeinu Shloshim's up, the Medaf learn with the Yid, Didn't say you have to learn with the Vilna Kohen, or you have to learn with the Shagazaria, or you have to learn with the smartest person. You have to learn with a person who has a Cheshik HaTorah. Or a person who doesn't have Cheshik HaTorah, and you're going to give him Cheshik HaTorah. Or a person's not so medactic b'mitzvah, and you're going to make him a medactic. You're trying to help him become a medactic b'mitzvah. That's what you do in Olam. That's Olam Haba. That's a world not for me. It's for me. It's a land of opportunity to bring Kvod Shemayim to the world. That's the world he lived in. And if you have that chush, then to daven to the Rebbeinu Shalom, have bitochen in the Rebbeinu Shalom, das ist a geschmack, das ist a schar, das ist an ilui, das ist a roimamus. If you understand what I'm saying, you understand everything and all the stories you heard. The Rebbe to sein gesund, Stark said to me, she's concerned. People say such mice, they're going to think he was a saint. Where was the human being here? He wasn't a saint. He was a Ben Olam Haba. Make mistakes also. Not everything was perfect. None of us are perfect. But he was a Ben Olam Haba. Rooted completely in the emes of the Torah, as Moshe just said now correctly, under the light, looking clearly what I am, not what, and if I have limitations, we'll work on them. And if it's not for me, I won't do it. And if I can do, I'll do something else. But I'm rooted in Olam Haba. My tachlis is things that are important. I'm not interested to be distracted. And he reached a point where it wasn't a challenge for him. The so-called Hevnei Olam Hazeh weren't a challenge for him. That I believe, Rabbi Sai, is if you need to know of Grossman, of global Oifen, what was Reb Dovid? What was Reb Yitzchak Dovid? He was a Ben Olam Haba. And therefore Ben Olam Haba learns, and the Ben Olam Haba teaches, and the Ben Olam Haba has an esrog, and the Ben Olam Haba has a nice talis, and the Ben Olam Haba, Kodesh Baruch Hu gave him chasnim, sons and sons-in-law, Grossman, Talmidei Chachamim. Think to yourself, listen, I want to say this publicly, because the schus of Reb Chaim Fassman, our Rosh Koilel Zechrono Livracha, the Olam who came to this Koilel in Los Angeles and stayed in Los Angeles were all Zoiche to marry their children to Talmidei Chachamim and Doiris Yisharim of an Oifen Nifla, was besser wie in Lakewood. On Konshum Scheide nicht, one after the other. Und das kommt from the schar of following rebellion, Reb Shnei and Reb Nosson, who sent us over here. And the schar of the Torah. It would be harder for us in Lakewood. Lakewood, among other people. They sent us here, and there's a Ribui HaTorah because of Reb Chaim, because of the Koilel. And you saw with Bechush, people who never went in America beyond the Harlem River in their whole life. Not one Ben Mishpacha crossed the Harlem River. And they have Shidduchim in Los Angeles. People who can't spell Los Angeles. People don't know which side of the sun it's on. And they have children and grandchildren here, Gedolei Torah, Mamish. Reb Shia Haftik is on a gesund stark sein. He is from Yerushalayim. Whoever can help him should help him. Reb Shia, he came to say Shir my koil today. He said, "Ich glaub nicht, dass all Junge Leute in Los Angeles. Glaub nicht, dass Hashreichem, dass Chabura." It's alles from Chaim. Reb Moshe, Yibadel Chaim Teufel. Moshe Rubenstein soll a gesund stark sein. But this is the point I want to be Messiah with. Anybody who comes here, anybody who goes to one of the local shuls who has a Rav, is a Ben Olam Haba. In Los Angeles, there are plenty of us to zichen. If you're zichen in Los Angeles, you're not ending up in our shuls, not Bati Medrash. If you're ending up in the Bati Medrash and in the schools, can I know the yeshivas for the boys, for the girls, the yeshiva katanas, the yeshiva, the siftas, they're blossoming. Everything has to be improved. Every koil has to be improved. Every person has to be improved. But if you look at what's being accomplished here, it's kulei nisim, it's nisim gluyim, and Reb Dovid was in the middle of the whole Neskali, the whole mahalach b'tachan, and how he ran his life, and how he, munah b'chush, the way he lived. All of that because he became a Ben Olam Haba. That's the nekuda that we have to remember. Kodesh Baruch Hu should help. We should be zochim mitzvah Hashem, each one of us. To be noch a bissel Ben Olam Haba, not missing anything. To be kaveh your life. Kodesh Baruch Hu should send us opportunities that bring us closer to Olam Haba, that bring us closer. Ad Yovoy Shilo Mitzvah Hashem. We should be zochim all together. The Tchias HaMesim B'nei Beis HaMikdash.